Welcome to the Rewards Master. Today, I'm continuing with my series for people who don't really fly internationally, but focus on domestic travel, who maybe are raising children or they have a schedule that doesn't allow them just to fly anytime they want, and are looking at their budget and saying, well, we need to stretch our dollars as far as we can, because their needs are different than those of us who do a lot of business and first-class international travel. In fact, what they need in credit cards and in an ecosystem is vastly different than people who do different kinds of travel. And the reason this came up is I got to thinking about where we were as a family, say 15 years ago, when we were raising our kids at home, when we had to pinch our pennies to watch every dollar so we could take the best vacations possible. And when we were stuck being able to go when the kids were out of school or they didn't have sports or we had to go on spring break or whatever it may be, when there might not be a lot of availability and prices might be higher. So I wanted to do a series for folks who are in that stage of life. So we talked about in our last video what I think some of the criteria should be for this. It needs to be easy to use. You need to have easy transfer partners. I mean, in some of the things that people recommend, you got to transfer to a foreign carrier like Turkish, or you got to transfer to things like Avianca. And if you haven't ever heard of Turkish or Avianca, well, then this setup in this video is for you, because you got to transfer to those, and then you got to try to buy domestic tickets on United or American or something with that foreign currency. That's just hard. I think it needs to be easy. And I think it needs to also give you a good value, a good cent per point value. So that's why I'm developing this series. And the first issue we're going to talk about is probably the best known of them all, and that is Chase Bank. So today we're going to look at the Chase Trifecta, as it's called, of 3 cards and how it might benefit you if all of these things we've described fit your travel needs. So if you would, please hit the like and subscribe button, and let's look at it together. Now, the Chase Trifecta, as it's typically known, it consists of the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, which is a $95 travel card. That's what you pay every year in an annual fee. And then it also has 2 no annual fee cards, the Chase Freedom Flex and the Chase Freedom Unlimited. And Chase is a big issuer. It has a lot of advantages, and there's a lot of ease of use in this ecosystem. So I think it does fit very well for people who have those limited travel availability and they have specific needs in regard to timing. So let's look at some of the pros and the cons of this setup. I think the first positive is that it's simple and it's easy to use. I mean, Chase, their app is very easy to navigate. Chase lets you move points back and forth between family members, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But their cards are easy to understand. I mean, Chase is it's kind of on beginner mode, but yet you can get very powerful, positive value from it, even though it's easy to use. So I think that has to be mentioned as the first of its powerful benefits. The second, as I briefly mentioned, is that it has probably the best 2-player potential of any other ecosystem. And what I mean by that is if you have a husband and wife, or if you're a family and you can both get credit cards with Chase, all you got to do is make a phone call and you can move your points between each other, back and forth from one to the other. So that makes booking things so much easier because you got access to each other's points, which is an underrated benefit in the credit card world. The third benefit is it has really fantastic protections. That Chase Sapphire Preferred Card has primary car rental. That means you don't even have to worry about it going on, if there's an accident, going on your own car insurance and raising your rates. I mean, they cover it. They've got really good protections for delayed bags and if your trip gets canceled, stuff like that. So for people who are kind of pinching their pennies and having to worry about their travel budget, it could really derail their life if they were on a trip and then something terrible happens as far as cancellations and it costs them a lot of extra money. So with Chase, you don't have to worry about that as much because they have just kind of industry best travel protections. I think one of the best benefits of the Chase setup is that you have pretty good airline partner and you have a really good, the best of the best hotel partner. Now, their airline partner that I'm mentioning here is United. They have others too, including Southwest and others. But the standard that I'm putting in this is you're still wanting to get good value. So to me, that's 2 cents per point or better. Now, United, you're not always going to get 2 cents per point on your airline tickets, but you can. And I put them, they're kind of the worst of all of the airlines that we're talking about in these videos and in these different setups that I'm putting. But I do find above 2 cents per point, even 3 cents per point sometimes with United flights if you transfer your points over from Chase. So I have to include them here. They're not the best, but they're not that bad. But when it comes to hotels, they have Hyatt as a transfer partner, and Hyatt is the gold standard on being able to get good value. I mean, there are Hyatt rooms you can get for like 5,000 points per night, and that is now it's the Hyatt House or Hyatt Place, but those are still decent places to stay for a family. So I think that their transfer partners are a real plus, particularly in the hotels, but also so when it comes to an airline partner in United for domestic travel. And then the last thing I'll mention on positives is they do have decent multipliers. They're not the best, but they're decent. So you get like 3x on dining on all these cards. You get some like drugstore 3x categories. You get an elevated category for online groceries. So if you pay for your groceries like through your app, you might get an elevated category. But it also has the Freedom Flex in there that has rotating categories. I'm not a big fan of rotating categories, but that means that every quarter they put out some different things. So that quarter you might get gas or dining or grocery at 5x up to $500 a month, so $1,500 a quarter. That can boost your earnings. And then you have the Freedom Unlimited, which is a simple 1.5x points on everything. That's a catch-all card. So those aren't the best multipliers, but they're not terrible multipliers either. So I think that has to be included in the positives. Now, when it comes to the negatives for the type of traveler we're talking about in this video, Chase does have some downsides. And these are the ones that I would note. First of all, it's missing some big time categories, gas and grocery. Now, you can do the online grocery thing, but that's kind of a pain. But just a plain old gas and grocery category would be great if Chase had it. They don't. So those are going to fall into catch-all categories, which is certainly not as good as some of their competitors. Also, some of your good earnings are because of that Freedom Flex card, which is rotating categories. And rotating categories can be a pain because you're only getting that elevated category once a year for that 3-month period. And then it changes. And then you got to rethink your strategy and what you're doing that quarter, which to me is, yes, the earnings of 5x on those different categories is good, but it's also a negative because it just takes more effort, takes more thought, and there's more breakage. You might accidentally not do it or not activate it or whatever it may be. So I think the rotating categories is certainly not as good as some of the way the cards of their competitors are set up, particularly Citi with their custom cash. The next negative is they have repeating categories. I mean, why do you need 3x on every single card for dining? You need 3x for dining on one of them and then a different 3x category on a different card. But that's not how they do it. They have repeating categories. So you're going to get a good earning rate on dining on all the cards. On a couple of the cards, you're going to get a good rate at drugstores. Who spends that much money at drugstores? But they still overlap. So I think those overlapping categories are not all that good. And then the last negative I'll mention is it has a poor, for industry standards, it has a poor catch-all card. The Freedom Unlimited doesn't give you 2x on every purchase, which is kind of the standard for a catch-all category. It gives you 1.5x, which is just a little stingy and not quite as good as their competitors. But overall, I think because Chase is so easy and Chase is just their ecosystem, it's simple to navigate. I mean, you can pool your points together with your player two. It's got a lot of benefits. And because it has the best hotel transfer partner and a decent airline transfer partner, I think it's a really a decent setup for a lot of people. So that's my take on the Chase setup for the person who maybe they can't travel whenever they want. They got to watch their budget. They're limited to summertime or when the kids are out of school. I think for that kind of person who wants easy use but decent value, Chase does fit that bill. And so you can compare it. I'm going to put out future videos with some of its competitors, but I think Chase, you really can't go wrong if you're that kind of person. And it worked for us for many, many years in the past. If you would, hit the like and subscribe button. Also consider my channel membership. It's $2.99 a month. I do dedicated videos for channel members. I also do early release videos. You can cancel anytime you want. There's details down below. Also, I have some links to some Chase cards if you'd like to apply for a Chase card and you'd really like to support the channel. It does help me in that way. So you can look down below in the description as well. Thank you for being here, and I will see you here next time.